SCP-6877 Eternal Heights. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-6877 is to be monitored via remote surveillance and regular patrol by Mobile Task Force Gamma-4, Green Stags. Site-44 is to oversee research, investigation, and general containment of SCP-6877, while station guards should prevent any unauthorized attempts to scale the anomaly. No personnel under Level 4 clearance are permitted to climb SCP-6877 for any reason outside of controlled testing. Subjects beyond 1900 meters are advised to avoid the source of any electronic beeping. Description: SCP-6877 is a transmitting station located in Mendip Hills, Somerset, England. SCP-6877's primary mast demonstrates a spatial anomaly triggered by certain weather conditions. Despite the non-anomalous mast being around 300 meters in height, upon the structure's tip becoming obscured by heavy cloud or fog, the mast extends upward for an indeterminate length. It is noted that this change is observable only from the perspective of persons climbing SCP-6877, instead remaining visually normal to externally viewing individuals. This non-Euclidean area is referred to as SCP-6877-1. It is believed that SCP-6877-1 exists as either a self-contained pocket dimension or extra-dimensional space resting between multiple separate realities. The space resembles a continuation of SCP-6877 for seemingly infinite distance upwards, the majority being encased in cloud cover, creating poor visibility conditions. Thus far, testing has proven indecisive on the existence of SCP-6877 Summit. See Test 6877-4. Attempts to descend the anomaly are rarely successful, often resulting in subjects encountering as of yet unidentified hostile organisms. For more information, see Addendum 6877-1. Discovery: SCP-6877 was officially recognized on July 2, 2009, upon the disappearance of an electrical technician following his ascent of the Mendip Transmission Station primary mast that morning. Operating due to scheduled maintenance, the individual was expected to return after approximately 1 hour, but due to humid conditions, the mast was obscured by cloud cover. Around an hour and a half later, the technician's work uniform and equipment fell from the cloud cover with no indication of the victim's location or status. Foundation agents were dispatched once station staff had contacted local law enforcement and secured the area. To date, the victim's whereabouts remain undetermined, though the investigation saw Foundation seizing of the property and restriction from public access. Current containment protocols were instigated shortly after. Addendum 6877-1. Testing. Test 6877-1. July 3, 2009. Events and observations. D3205 was equipped with radio transmitting equipment, video equipment, and safety wire, and instructed to attempt to climb SCP-6877. A long-range LiDAR feedback system was used to assert the subject's progression of the mast's primary ladder. Following safety checks, Site-44 Command requests D3205 to begin ascent. D3205 ascends for 12 minutes before reaching cloud cover and disappearing out of sight, assuming to have entered SCP-3877-1. Site Command questions D3205 regarding any noticeable changes, of which there are none. Following 40 minutes of climbing, audio and video feed picks up on an object rapidly falling past D3205. The subject looks downwards, towards the distance the object was traveling in, though it has now been obscured by heavy fog. As D3205 stares upwards at the stimulus' source, a vague silhouette and light is visible further up SCP-6877, fading into the cloud upon visual contact being made. Site-44 Command questions the subject regarding the nature of the falling object. She remarks that, "I think it was a person who was only wearing a hard hat." At no point does any object impact the ground and local reality. The subject continues, reaching a final height of around 850 meters before descending to recuperate. Test 6877-2 July 3rd, 2009. Events and observations. D3205 was equipped with radio transmitting equipment, video equipment, and safety wire, instructed to attempt to climb SCP-6877. D3205 is instructed to again ascend the anomaly with the intent of surpassing the former threshold. The subject reaches the former height of 850 meters with no complications. Research teams note that subjects climbing SCP-6877 do not appear to feel the effects of altitude sickness nor oxygen deprivation, if either are a factor in SCP-6877-1. See Test Number 3. After reaching the point of the former event in silhouette sighting, D3205 discovers a discarded radar dish receiver, seeming to have been torn from its mount in a violent manner. The subject continues upwards for 90 minutes. At an altitude of 1,400 meters, the subject complains of a consistent beeping sound. Following a brief equipment check, D3205 concludes that it is originating from overhead, supposedly slightly muffled and at a distance. Audio feed begins to pick up the aforementioned sound shortly after continuing ascent. Following further investigation, D3205 can hear subtle coughing and wheezing originating alongside the electronic beeping. The subject continues to a height of 1,900 meters before the sound ceases. A metallic clanging is heard, audibly becoming rapidly closer. D3205 frantically looks around in search of the source when camera, audio, and radio feed abruptly ceases. Test 6877-3 July 5th, 2009. Events and observations. D8986 is outfitted with similar equipment to former tests in addition to a barometer, footnote 1, a device that is used to measure air pressure, and binary gas analyzer, footnote 2, used to determine the ratio of gases in an environment, in order to carry out atmospheric survey within SCP-6877-1. D8986 is told to ascend SCP-6877 for as long as physically possible and report any significant events or findings. D8986 reaches an altitude of 1,500 meters before reporting a similar quiet beeping sensation as described by D3205, originating from further above their current position. The subject is requested to remain stationary. After 2 minutes, the sound begins to become distant and the subject continues. At 1,800 meters, Site Command requests D8986 to carry out gaseous testing as previously trained. D8986 unloads the light instruments and proceeds. Atmospheric gaseous composition and pressure within SCP-6877-1 is shown to be composed of similar contents to the lower troposphere, meaning that atmospheric conditions remain constant and mirror that of the anomaly's base region. How this is possible remains unknown, though it is likely related to SCP-6877-1's suspected non-Euclidean nature. Following the recorded observations, D8986 claims to see a bright orange object flapping in the wind further up SCP-6877. Site 44 Command prompts investigation. The subject climbs a further 100 meters before discovering the item to be a standard issue Class D jumpsuit tied to the ladder. Inspection of the chest area, confirming it to belong to D3205. The clothing shows no signs of damage or tearing. A distant radar pinging is picked up by audio transmitting equipment, though D8986 shows no acknowledgement of the stimulus. Research teams inquire upon the noise, to which the subject claims it is inaudible. Gazing upwards, D8986 can observe a large blurry shadow. While their camera is pointed towards the unidentified stimulus, the radar ping is noted to increase in sound intensity and clarity. As D8986 is permitted to decline SCP-6877, a bright floodlight originates from the stimulus and the pinging ceases. A metallic clanging grows in intensity as the light rapidly descends towards the subject and all contact with D8986 is lost. The D-Class's uniform and equipment plummet towards the ground in local reality. Test 6877, 4. July 11th, 2009. Events and observations. D9043 is equipped with video and audio transmitting equipment, rope, 8 days worth of rations, and a small firearm. D9043 is a former professional rock climber and has been instructed to ascend SCP-6877 with the intention of reaching its summit. The subject has been advised to avoid any deviations from typical environmental sound activity and lighting. The subject reaches cloud cover at around 250 meters and enters SCP-6877-1. There are noticeably higher winds and precipitation compared to former tests that are not consistent with external conditions or weather associated with low altitudes. D9043's camera feed becomes mostly obscured by fog for around 2 hours. Command points out the issue to D9043, who promptly begins to clean the lens. For around 3 seconds, the camera observes a sudden disappearance of all cloud cover. During this time, the English emergency alert system alarm can be heard. The subject does not respond to the brief alteration, and upon questioning claims that there was no noticeable change. Upon nightfall, the subject ties theirself to the ladder via the belt and rests. D9043 passes the 1900-meter boundary with no complications, an outlier among former tests, and proceeds with ease. Around 2800 meters, the subject discovers a large dent in SCP-6877 alongside areas of torn metal, wiring, and antenna. This leads to the revelation that at extreme heights, despite remaining unpowered in local reality, SCP-6877 has active electricity flow. This is presumed to power the various satellite broadcasting dishes and antenna receivers. The subject suggests that he should attempt to tune into one of the dish's wavelengths to assess the nature of their signal. Command approves this request, and D9043 records the results. Upon reconnecting to the research team's frequency, the following recording can be heard. Unknown. Warning. Please do not turn off your device. The United Kingdom is currently experiencing a garbled static of extreme magnitude. All citizens are to remain indoors and under cover. If possible, seek an underground shelter or otherwise subterranean environment for use as a long-term refuge and static from the ones. If you are in the vicinity of the Greater London area, please attempt to enter the underground passages to be granted entry into static and receive emergency medical aid or other necessities. The UK government advises all sheltering citizens to keep their entropiscopicrical radio receivers powered and active. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. The meaning behind this broadcast is unknown. D9043 repeats the test with other dishes, which each broadcasts entirely separate, unrelated messages. Each has no correlation with any known radio stations in Somerset or otherwise globally. The subject continues to climb upon remote downloading of the recording. At approximately 3,400 meters, the subject complains of a repetitive beeping sound. Suspecting the sudden appearance of the previously encountered hostile entity, research teams implore the subject to continue ascent at a greatly increased pace. This does little to cease the sound's presence or reveal its direction of origin, which is indeterminable due to the fog layer's ability to carry sound. D9043 briefly ceases to consume a nutrient bar, but continues swiftly. The following 48 hours are uneventful, with the subject making regular stops to rest or consume rations. By the conclusion of the third day, D9043 has ascended a total height of 9 kilometers above sea level with little interference. Site 44 Command runs routine checkups on D9043 throughout and at around the point of 10.9 kilometers. An alteration in their perception is recorded. The subject describes hearing distant roadside ambiance as if they were within the proximity of SCP-6877's base. They report a sensation that they are nearing the ground as they begin climbing at a significantly accelerated pace, seemingly with excitement. Command reminds D9043 that they are nearing 11 kilometers above sea level and are likely falling subject to auditory hallucinations and increasing cognitive suggestibility. The subject ignores these reminders and continues upwards. Following a total of 4 days and 8 hours scaling SCP-6877's westbound side, the D-Class exits the layer of cloud perpetually encapsulating SCP-6877-1, continuing infinitely in all directions below them. D-9043 glances upwards, revealing the anomaly's peak point to be within viewing distance. Astounded, Site Command congratulates D-9043's efforts and dedication, encouraging them to continue at an accelerated pace. D-9043 reaches the anomaly's summit, revealing SCP-6877's maximum altitude to reach a height of 19 kilometers above sea level. Nearing the summit, the subject discovers a speaker-like protrusion that seems to be the source of extremely loud ambient traffic recordings. Upon inspection, it swiftly retracts downwards below the cloud cover and quiet beeping is audible, followed by the sound of radar and a brief silence. The entire structure begins to rattle, seemingly due to rapid movement further downwards. A large semi-mechanical entity breaks the cloud cover, ascending the mast at high speeds. The entity is constructed primarily of mechanical components, wiring, antenna, and utility dishes, possessing a large spotlight on its head. Further viewing reveals it to have numerous clothing items tied to itself. It rapidly approaches D-9043. The subject clings to a large antenna at SCP-6877's point of termination and gazes downward at the sight of the approaching entity. Approximately 2 seconds before contact, an extremely large tentacle reaches for the entity and grabs it by the torso, dragging it down beneath the clouds. Following the distant sounds of a skirmish, a white light is seen to disappear further down SCP-6877. D-9043's camera feed shows the structure to becoming increasingly blurred. Initially believing the lens to be accumulating fog, Command asks the subject to wipe off any obscurity when it is noted that the local reality's weather has begun to clear, meaning that SCP-6877's non-anomalous tip was slightly visible from the ground. D-9043 begins to lose their grip as their view and presence within SCP-6877-1 continues to fade. They enter freefall in the lower stratosphere, 19 kilometers above Earth's surface. Note: following the concluding test, the only item recovered was a single charred Class D jumpsuit and climbing equipment. Additionally, prior to D-9043's exit from SCP-6877-1, the following text was observed to be printed on the anomaly's uppermost point. The azure peak spirals upwards. It branches long and thin. It writhes against its verdant roots, the lesser of its kin. Further testing is currently suspended. Thank you for listening to SCP-6877 Eternal Heights by Aussie Lizard. If you enjoyed this SCP, please like and subscribe, and follow the link in the description to the SCP Wiki and vote to support it and the SCP Wiki as a whole.